Welcome back to another episode of Expedition Marriage. We are glad to have you with us, whether it's on podcast or whether it's on our YouTube channel. We're happy you're here. We certainly would appreciate a follow, a subscribe, comments, reviews. We'll take it all.
That's right. Bring it. If you bring it, we'll take it.
Yeah. Well, it helps us get the message out to other couples, to other married couples who need help, who need to hear this, and you could be a part of getting that message out.
Don't you want to be a part of that?
Don't you want to be a part of it?
Doing some good in the world.
Be a part of a movement.
That's right. That's right.
For good. Be part of the good. So we're talking today about communicating with our spouses, right? Because that's usually a very hot topic. That's one of the big ones out there are some of the struggles that we have. And we hear a lot about having problems with our spouses opening up with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, that's what we're going to talk about is how to get your spouse to open up to you.
Yep.
Because we hear, I'll say we hear from a lot of couples, but the reality is we hear from a lot of wives who are saying, my husband won't talk to me. He won't share with me. He won't communicate with me. And it's a problem. And so we're going to address that today.
Yeah, that is a problem.
Yeah. But also, you know, and I'm saying that we're hearing a lot from the wives that are saying this. But that doesn't mean it's not an issue with women.
Exactly.
There are plenty of you women out there who are not good about sharing and about opening up and sharing your needs or sharing your feelings or thoughts or anything with your husbands. But I would also say that there aren't too many men who are writing in or talking to us in sessions saying, you know what, I just wish my wife would share her feelings with me. There are some of you out there that are saying it, but majority, you're not saying that you want your wife to share more with you.
Right.
But that doesn't mean one spouse not sharing with the other is not a problem in your marriage.
Exactly.
Just because you're not engaged with it or bothered by it, it doesn't mean it's not a problem because communication is foundational in marriage and we want to share.
Yeah, we have to tell couples all the time. We're like, well, we didn't really have any arguments. I'm like, okay, so that means everything's good. You know, so just absence of arguments means that the relationship's good?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, you said something the other night during a session, and I think I remember it correctly. You're like, quiet doesn't mean resolution. And that is so true. Just because there's not fighting, there's not conflict, doesn't mean problems are resolved or problems aren't there.
Exactly. And if you've spent any time listening to us at all, you've heard me say we get good at what we practice.
I knew it was coming.
Oh, yeah.
I knew it was coming.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things.
It's so true.
It's
so true.
So true. And if we can really get our heads around that and start to realize, because look, it's not just the habits. It's not just doing it. We have to have the reasons why we're doing it. We have to, our identity needs to be lined up. So there's a lot that has to go along with that.
Right.
Motivations, that kind of stuff. But if we're not doing the right things, even if we don't feel like it, right, then we're not going to ever get good at it. Even if it's awkward, even if I'm uncomfortable, we're not going to ever get there. And if we're doing the wrong things, which a lot of the times that's the problem, we're doing a lot of the, I don't want to say wrong things, but we're not doing helpful things.
Right.
We're not doing beneficial things.
Right.
And we're getting really good at that, and we're setting ourselves up for situations and patterns that's giving us these results that's leading us to the other person not opening up. And we didn't even realize that we're doing that.
Right. Right. Because there's a lot that, you know, we just did an episode on must-have marriage habits. And we talked about this briefly, but there's a lot we're doing or not doing in our marriage, and we're not even aware.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so we really need to be paying attention because you hear so many couples, you know, you've heard the line, we fell out of love. We just drifted apart. And that's a big, I don't remember the percentages, but it is way up there for how many couples like that have been divorced said they just drifted apart. They're not paying attention.
Yeah.
They're allowing habits in their marriage.
Exactly.
They're allowing things to take place. They're allowing a lack of communication. They're allowing a lopsided marriage to drift them apart from one another. And that's not okay. We have to be aware that things are going on.
Right. That does not happen when you're being intentional.
Right.
That does not happen when you're putting effort in and when you're watching out for it. And then if you're driving a car and I just drifted into the other lane, well, you were probably on your phone.
Yeah. You were not paying attention.
Or yelling at the kids. I don't know, but you weren't being aware and you weren't being intentional about staying in that lane.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
Is
no,
that too much?
that's
Yeah.
so true. If you're focused on where you're going, very rarely will you get over onto the rumble strips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So-
nice. Well, so let's talk
Here
about
we
some
are.
of
We're
these.
gonna help you with
some of
that.
these. Well, because there's definitely some better starts than there are with other. So
Yeah.
as far as conversational starts, how we start
Yeah.
into a conversation. So there's definitely good ones, and there's definitely ones that
Yeah.
aren't good that
There's
we need to
starts
stop doing.
and some stops.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yep. So let's talk about this. We'll start with stopping. Sure, why not? But because this comes up a whole lot, so let's make sure we hit this first. Invalidation.
Yeah, so if you want your spouse to talk to you more, here's where we're going with that. You can't be invalidating.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If you start off with invalidating them, which was suggesting by your demeanor, by what you're saying, that what they're saying, how they're thinking, how they're feeling isn't right or needs to change, then you're starting off wrong. You are asking for problems. You're sending that conversation into a place where I'm confident you don't want it to go.
Right, right. And invalidating, like that can shut somebody down super
Oh, yeah.
fast. And if you are married to somebody who struggles with sharing with you to begin with,
Oh yeah.
they're entering in on guard. They're entering in, they're allowing themselves to be vulnerable.
Yep.
And the second a problem comes up, they're going to be very quick to shut down and react to that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's certain personalities like we've talked about in I think it's episode 35. We talked about avoiders. They're not used to sharing. They're not used to receiving comfort, right? So when they reach out to
They're taking a risk.
they're taking a risk, and so if it's not handled well, and then you look, and it usually is not because it caught you by surprise. It's like, what is this? I don't know. But then then they pull back in and they go, that's right. I don't do that.
Yeah, that's why
yeah.
I don't share with you because every time I do, this happens. And so, like, the fix to that, like, you can use words that are just saying exactly what it is. When a spouse shares with you who's not used to sharing with you, you can match that with, that's valid. That's valid. You don't have to agree with what they're saying. You don't have to react that way, but you can say, you know what, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't
That's
have
fair.
to feel
I see that.
I don't have to feel that way, but you know what? I understand how you might feel that way, or you know what? That makes sense that might bother
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
For that, it doesn't have to bother me, but if it bothers you, and that's what's important. I'm not saying that you have to say that last part. I'm just
Right.
That's the messaging. So if we validate people, and validating is also builds relational. All right, let me say that differently.
Yeah.
When we
I knew what you meant.
you know what I meant. When we validate somebody, it increases relationship. It helps us be stronger in our relationship, and we stay relational. And when we're relational, good things tend to happen. When we're not relational, bad things tend to happen.
Right.
So if I don't know what else to do, then I can validate, and that keeps us relational, and
Right.
good things will probably
Yeah,
happen.
and now you're in a situation like all of these things we're talking about will do this. The spouse who doesn't normally share, when they are willing to be vulnerable, and you match that vulnerability with love, with acceptance, with safety,
Yep.
and not all these other things, they're going to learn, okay, I did it and I survived. I did it, and maybe it was
true.
even positive.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it wasn't negative. Now
it
they can
didn't
do
suck.
it again. And then the more opportunities for engagement like that they have, the less vulnerable they're going to share. And then before you know it, they're just automatically sharing when they have stress, when they have insecurity. When you want to ask questions to know how they feel, they now know they can do it successfully.
They get good at what they've been practicing, regardless of
Right.
how awkward it was at the beginning.
Right. And that's one of those things, now that I just said that when you ask them how they feel, because that's a lot of this.
sure,
I mean,
yeah.
especially wives, we want to know, how are you feeling? What are your thoughts? I mean, get in your head. We don't understand the whole compartmentalization thing y'all do. We do not get that you can literally be sitting there thinking of nothing.
The nothing box.
Yes, you have it. I want a nothing box. I want a nothing box, like, so badly. But we don't get that. But also, there's a lot of men and women who aren't good at identifying how they feel.
Yeah,
Because
true.
they don't like feelings. Could be personality, could be their upbringing, could be past traumas, all this
scary,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I just would prefer avoid feelings. And when you're asking me how I'm feeling, you're trying to push me into doing something that I don't like
Yeah, I'm
doing.
not comfortable.
Or I don't know how. And so a lot of times the ones who aren't sharing, it's because they don't really know how they're feeling. They don't pay attention to that. And what you don't want to do is force them, is
Yeah.
rush them, is interrogate them.
Right. Oh yeah, and press them into it because that'll cause some anxieties. It will cause a situation that you're not wanting.
Right.
Right. And even using using the word why when you start off, it can come across as being an interrogation. Why do you feel that way? Why are you thinking that? Because
Yeah.
the unintended message is there was something wrong with the way you were thinking or feeling, or that you did. And now I'm. It's a leading question. I'm waiting for you to give me the answer so I can let you know that it was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And I used to do that a lot. Like, I would just drill you with question. Like I would, and like, okay, I've got the same question for you, and I've got 5 different ways I've got it phrased here, and it is going to be rapid fire. And I would rush you because when I'm wanting you to share, it's because I'm feeling a disconnection. And so when you're not entering into that, it's more and more disconnection, which is more and more threat to the relationship, which means I naturally am going to choose something that is not going to work because I'm not pausing to think about it. But I'm looking to restore that connection. And so it's like, but answer it this way, answer it that way, answer it this way. And it's too much. And I'm not allowing room, or I wasn't allowing room for you to pause and actually think about the question
They contemplate
that
it,
I've
chew on
asked
it,
you.
yeah.
You know, and so it's allowing space where you're not interrogating and you're asking a question and you're actually giving them room, some breathing room to ponder, to think about it. And it could be as simple as earlier in the day, hey, I want to hear how your day is. I want to hear how your day was later tonight when the kids go to bed.
Yeah.
Now he's got hours to chew on this.
Yeah, remind me. I want to hear about your day. Don't before we go to bed. Or I want to.
Right, or
do
I
wanna
want to
know
hear
about
an
that.
update
Yeah.
on what's going on, things like that. So, but give room. Don't do the interrogation. I was horrible about that.
No, especially because you knew what you were going to ask for a long time.
That's right.
And
That's
it
right.
just hit me with that. So because that leads into a lot of the next thing is getting defensive, right? Don't get defensive when it's you versus me.
Never done that.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
yeah,
This
no.
is solely for you.
Yeah, or me either, right? Because when we get defensive, then it puts you versus me, and when it's you versus me, there can't be a we.
Yeah.
Right? It's a break of relationship. So we're pushing the other person back. It don't feels like I'm just defending myself, but the other person, it feels offensive to them.
Yeah.
And so then you're tearing apart that, and also you're kind of look, it's coming from an honest place. I don't want to be the one who's wrong. I don't want to be the one
Yeah.
who's to blame.
It's
I don't want it to be
self-protective.
my fault. But if there's just 2 of us,
If it's not me, it's you.
yeah. So it does definitely come across in a wrong way. So if you're feeling defensive, then say it. Say, hey, look, it makes me feel defensive, or it makes me feel like you're interrogating me, or maybe that you're on attack, or that you're setting me up, and there's a certain way, right? Whatever it is, voice it.
Right.
Just instead of getting defensive and go, hey, I didn't do that, or that's not my fault. Go, hey, it seems like you're saying that I blew it somehow, like you're saying it's my fault, and I guarantee you that most of the time, not saying all the time, I'm just going to say most of the time, they're not even thinking that way.
No.
The other person's, that's not even on their radar. Now, sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not even on their radar, and they're not waiting to pounce. But when you enter into that, then it does set up a situation where there's that feeling, and that shuts down communications.
And if
Communication
every
shutdown.
time your spouse comes to you, they're met with defensiveness, they're going to quit coming to you.
Yep.
That's going to shut them down. And so if you want a spouse to share with you how they really feel, then when they finally do, you can't tell them that their feelings aren't valid. Yeah. You can't force them to share it with you the right way, the way that you want it to be shared with you. And you also can't defend it and say, when they finally share, you know what, I don't like that you've been doing this. If that is met with, well, I only do that because of this, that, and what else do you expect me to do when that, they're done.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, this is why I don't share with you. You've made it too hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult a difficult situation. Not that all conversations need to be easy.
Right.
We need to be willing to get uncomfortable. We need to be willing to press
Yes,
into
there's
places.
ownership on both
Yeah,
sides.
and awkward, absolutely. But there's better starts,
Yeah.
and there's better things to do that are starting. And another thing, and this is kind of because it doesn't affect me at all, so I'm speaking for other people. The reacting.
Probably me. I'm probably the other person if we're going to be real here.
Well, no, it's reacting in anxiety. Because here's how it goes. I have I'm working on it, a habit if I'm stressed out about something and all that. Well, I just want to, big man wants to carry stress on his own shoulders. and I don't want to burden my wife with this because I'll just handle the stress. I don't want her to get stressed out. But over the years, I've learned that I need to. You have to share this. We're supposed to carry each other's burdens, and we've talked about that in other episodes. But if I go to Jamie and then she then freaks out and gets all anxious and stressed out, I'm like, well, for example, like if I'm going, hey, you know what? They're talking about maybe layoffs at the job and all that, and if her response is, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to be part of that? Have you already started getting your resume out there? We need to get your resume out there and all that. Then I get the message of,
Don't share with her.
I shouldn't share stresses with her because it just stressed her out. And now I'm dealing with
Which is exactly why you didn't want to share.
Yeah.
And this is a common situation. I mean,
Sure.
that's one example of it. But if we react, either spouse, in anxiety, when a spouse who doesn't typically, if you've got great communication and you're able to share with each other all the time,
Right.
then it can be, like that could be fine. It's like, oh, wow, this is stressful. Do we have a plan for this? But if you're dealing with a spouse who struggles with sharing with you, and they finally come to you, and what they're met with is what you just shared completely stressed me out and overwhelmed me, and I need you to do all of these things. Maybe they jump into problem solving, maybe they get stuck in anxiety, and
Right.
now that spouse feels like I just made their life worse.
Well, and now you're no longer a resource for me. Now I have to carry your burdens of your stress while I'm trying to carry my own burdens of my stress that I try
Yeah.
to get help for and resource for, but instead I have to, to help you out.
Right. So I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the lesson there. And so if you want a spouse to share with you, give them some breathing room. Invite them in with some questions.
Yep.
Offer fair warning when you can.
True.
Like, hey, tonight, let's talk about this. Don't invalidate them. Be prepared to listen, to acknowledge, and create a safe, loving, welcoming space. That way they can walk away and go, I just took a risk and shared with my spouse.
Yeah.
And it paid off because I actually feel better. We connected because it's not always problems. Sometimes it's like, I just want you to talk about your day.
Sure, yeah.
I just want your opinion on something. Make it a successful thing. So control yourself and your reactions. And that's how you're best going to set them up for success in wanting to come and talk to you again. Because connection is the goal.
Yep.
You want to be a resource for one another. You want to be connected together. And learning how to share and learning how to let one another in, that's a great way to
Enjoy the journey.